So if we don't use the Article 5 Convention, do we have other options? What is the solution? If you're a state legislator viewing this video, the first thing I would recommend, if your state is on record applying for an Article 5 convention, please sponsor an effort to rescind your application for an Article 5 convention. This is a dangerous avenue that we should not be pursuing at this time. If there are bills coming up in your legislative session proposing this, please help defeat them. We need to make sure that we preserve the Constitution. But what options are available to our state legislators? I propose that state legislators should use Article 6, the Article 6 solution. What is Article 6? There are two clauses I want to point out. First, we'll go to Clause 3 of Article 6, where it says that all elected officials shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Now that means that not only are members of the federal government swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution, but our governors, our state legislators, our city councilmen, every level of government is required to swear an oath to the federal Constitution. Why? Well, again, fortunately, James Madison answers this question for us. In Federalist number 44, he poses the question, why are our state-level magistrates, as he refers to them, required to not only swear an oath to their state constitutions, but also to the federal? And he says that the state officials have the duty to give effect to the Constitution. By you swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution, that especially means even if the federal government is not. When the federal government is violating the Constitution, is your oath to follow them or to uphold the Constitution? Well, clearly, we need more state legislators and governors that are willing to make a stand and say that is not within the jurisdictional power of the federal government, and we will not allow them to proceed with this. We also turn to Clause 2 of Article 6. This is known as the Supremacy Clause. It says, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land." This is generally viewed as all laws made by the federal government are supreme. But that is not what it says. The phrase "in pursuance thereof" defines it. Laws of the United States that are made in pursuance, in following the Constitution, are supreme. What does that mean of laws that are made not following the Constitution? Well, again, the Federalist Papers answers that question for us. In Federalist 33, laws made not in pursuance thereof are, quote, "merely acts of usurpation and will deserve to be treated as such." That's some pretty bold words, isn't it? How do you treat an unconstitutional law as an act of usurpation? You resist it, you stand in the way of it any way you can. In many cases, our state governments are relied on to help implement unconstitutional actions of the federal government. Does this ever work? If a state stands up and refuses to go along with a federal mandate or law? Absolutely. There's actually a long history throughout our nation's history of states blocking federal action that they felt was unconstitutional. One of the most recent examples is the 2005 Real ID Act, where initially 12 state legislatures stood up and said, we will not be implementing the Real ID Act in our state. How did the federal government respond? They pushed back the implementation deadline. And by the time they got to the new deadline, 28 states were saying no. And at this point, although they're trying to work it in the back door, the Real ID Act itself looks like it won't be required to be implemented by those states that are refusing to do so. They have won on that battle. There are many examples of this that could be given. But the point is, if our state legislators and our governors take their oath seriously, their job is to give effect to the Constitution to protect us from unconstitutional acts of the federal government. Now, the media will often portray this as a crazy idea. This is referred to as nullification or interposition. There's a long and rich history of this concept. The spirit behind these, where an intermediate government official protects the rights of the people against a higher level government official. That's the same concept that gave us things like the Magna Carta, the Boston Tea Party, the Declaration of Independence, and even the entire American Revolution. To say these are radical and crazy ideas is to speak against each of those as well. Our state legislators need to again have this spirit of protecting the rights of the people against the abuses of the federal government. They are the ones that are to interpose on our behalf. Now, as individuals, what can we as Americans that are concerned do to help return our country to the limited constitutional form of government we were intended to have? President James Garfield gave us a good perspective. He said, "Now, more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it is because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in the national legislature." Now I ask, who does that place the blame on? Is it really an out-of-control Congress that's the problem? Or is it the people that continually elect them? Is it the people that continue to support them? Well, not my senator, he's a good one. Is he? Do you know his voting record? Is he protecting your rights? Is he following the Constitution? The problem we have in Washington, D.C., they don't follow the rules for one reason. We, the American people, don't know the rules. How many in our country could clearly articulate the line between what is supposed to be in the federal jurisdiction, what is in their power, and what was left to the states, and what was left to the people? When we understand and demand adherence to the federal Constitution, it will be upheld. Thomas Jefferson gives us two great quotes on this topic. "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be." Those promoting this Article 5 convention as the solution are trying to do this impossibility. They're trying to preserve our freedom while our nation is ignorant of those principles of liberty, of the limits of power of the Constitution. They're trying to achieve what never was and never will be. What then is the solution ultimately? Again from Thomas Jefferson. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. When the people understand the Constitution, they are now empowered to hold their elected officials accountable to it. When we understand and demand adherence to the Constitution, it will be followed. For that purpose, the John Birch Society has produced 6 lectures on the Constitution to help us become familiar with the limits of power the federal government is supposed to be following, as well as how to get back to it. It's time to restore the Constitution in the hearts and minds of the people and in the actions of our federal government. Thank you.